Now, let's move on to a similar topic, our final topic of the day. A report has found that a decline of more than 20% in church service attendance compared to pre-pandemic times may have more to do with a lack of services than a drop in potential worshippers. Statisticians in the Diocese of Oxford have built up a picture which suggests that for the first time in the Church of England's history, more than a quarter of churches do not hold a service every Sunday. To discuss this, I'm delighted to welcome author, former chaplain to Queen Elizabeth II and great friend of the show, Dr. Gavin Ashenden. Dr. Gavin Ashenden, thank you very much for joining us on Holy Saturday. What do you think is going on here? Why is there a massive appearance of a drop in numbers due to services, not necessarily the faithful?
Well, Calvin, thank you for having me on, and happy Easter to you and everyone. There are complex reasons behind this, but I think if one was to choose an overriding causal reason, I would say that, obviously there aren't enough clergy, there aren't enough people, but there hasn't been enough faith. One of the things we haven't had particularly from the Church of England, are leaders speaking out about the distinctiveness of Christianity, as opposed to a kind of liberal humanism, which mimics Radio 4 and that kind of culture. So it's too few people and too little conviction and courage.
Well, until 2019, it was also a legal requirement, wasn't it, for churches to hold a service on a Sunday? And I think they dropped that. That seems to be a mistake in my eyes. But why, upon dropping that, would the number of services therefore drop too? Is that because of, like you say, a lack of faith, or is it just lack of resources? I know of many, and I'm sure you know of many vicars and priests that have been made responsible for benefices of like 14 churches, which is totally unmanageable, isn't it?
Well, it really is. It's this complete change from being a parish priest to being a manager of monuments. And the poor clergy of the Church of England have got no chance whatsoever. It's not just that they have 4 buildings, some of them, or 6 buildings. They have 4 PCCs, 4 central committees. The legalism, the safeguarding, the paperwork make being an apostle of Christ and a shepherd of believers almost impossible to deliver. And so the problem is, for as long as they continue to try and make the system work with fewer resources, you have a vicious circle, and people lose whatever confidence they had in the first place. But the really important thing is this belief in Christ and the belief that lives can be transformed. That's where you start, but that seems to be at the bottom of the list.
I think a solution might be, I might suggest that, for example, the Church Commission, which has, £10 billion worth of assets, could divert some of those assets to parishes to make sure that every parish does have a parish priest and people aren't overworked and aren't trying to manage multiple parishes at once. That might be a solution. I don't know if it's practical, but that might be a solution. What do you think might be a solution?
No, I think it's completely practical. We know already that Archbishop Welby, who is a very competent manager of organisations, has managed to persuade the Church Commissioners to change their rules to allow him to dip into their enormous funds for his own projects. The trouble is, this is not a bad idea, but the projects haven't produced anything. I think the Church of England's in its last death throes, and if they have £10 billion, I would spend it all on an enormous evangelistic exercise to try and take the burden of administration off the backs of the clergy. One last gasp, tell our community about the wondrous good news of Jesus, rather than to sink into this awful swamp of maladministration.
And in our last 30 seconds, Gavin, what are you going to be doing for Vigil tonight and or Mass in the morning?
In 5 minutes' time, I'm leaping off to the Vigil Mass tonight. Then I shall go to a 9 o'clock service in the morning. Then I'm going to have a massive slap-up breakfast to celebrate the resurrection joy of Easter, and spend the rest of the day being so grateful that death is not the end, forgiveness is unlimited. All our lives have the most profound meaning, and thanks to Christ for doing it all for us.
Well, God bless you. Have a wonderful Easter. Thank you very much. That was author and former Church of England priest Gavin Ashenden.